Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at biometric authentication,
Oh, yeah?
something that I think we all kind of interact with on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Whether it's, unlocking our phones or maybe you're even logging into your bank account using biometrics.
Yep.
But we're going to go a little bit deeper than that today.
Okay.
And we're going to be looking at some pretty fascinating research papers
Okay.
and economic journals that you sent my way with the goal of really unpacking both the security and maybe even more importantly, the ethical concerns surrounding biometrics.
It's really incredible how much this technology has advanced. And I think, we really need to take a look past just the convenience factor and ask some of the tough questions.
Absolutely.
How secure are these systems? What happens if our data falls into the wrong hands? And maybe most importantly, what are we giving up in exchange for that faster login or that more personalized experience?
Oh, yeah, you really hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
So let's just start with the basics.
Yeah.
What exactly are biometrics? I think most people, when they think of biometrics, they think of fingerprints.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's a lot more than that.
It is a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Biometrics really encompasses a wide range of traits. You have your physiological traits, like you mentioned, fingerprints, iris patterns.
Sure.
But what I think is even more fascinating are the behavioral biometrics.
Okay.
Things like your voice, the way you walk, even your typing style.
Hold on, typing style.
Yeah.
That's getting into some seriously sci-fi territory.
I know.
I mean, does that mean that every time I type an email, I'm leaving behind a unique fingerprint that could be used to identify me?
You are.
Wow.
It's not science fiction.
Yeah.
This is the reality that we live in.
It's wild.
Every interaction we have with technology is a potential source of biometric data.
Yeah.
Your smartphone, your laptop, even your fitness tracker, they're all collecting information about you, often in ways you might not even realize.
Yeah, and it's mind-blowing to me how quickly this technology is advancing, especially when we look at something like healthcare.
Right.
One of the papers that you sent me, evaluating the efficacy of biometric authentication techniques in healthcare.pdf, really highlights the need for stricter security measures to protect all this sensitive patient data. So is it safe to say that biometrics is kind of seen as the answer to this growing need for digital security?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
As cybercrime continues to rise, biometrics are increasingly being seen as the solution to our security woes.
Yeah.
And you think about it, forging a fingerprint or an iris scan
Right.
is a lot harder than cracking a password.
Yeah, definitely.
So on the surface, it seems like the perfect security solution.
Okay.
But, and this is where it gets interesting, this incredible security
Yeah.
comes with a potentially hefty price tag,
Okay.
our privacy.
So it's almost like we're trading one problem for another. We're solving the security issue, but we're opening up this Pandora's box of privacy concerns.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay.
Because unlike a password, you can't change your fingerprint.
Right.
You can't change your iris pattern.
Right.
Once that data is compromised,
Yeah.
there's no going back.
Oh, wow.
Imagine the fallout from a data breach involving millions of people's biometric information.
Oh, man.
It'd be catastrophic.
Yeah, it's not like you can issue everyone a new face or a new set of fingerprints.
Exactly.
And speaking of fingerprints, publication2.pdf brought up something that I thought was, kind of unsettling to me.
Okay.
Which is that the accuracy of fingerprint scans can be affected by something as simple as everyday wear and tear.
That's right.
Really?
And it raises a critical question.
Okay.
If something as mundane as, rough hands
Right.
can throw off a system,
Yeah.
what about other factors like aging injuries or even certain skin conditions?
Wow.
Suddenly, the idea of these systems being completely foolproof starts to crumble.
So it really makes you wonder about the real-world reliability of these systems, especially when you start to think about the potential consequences of a false positive or even a false negative. Like, imagine being denied access to your own bank account or your medical records because the system just doesn't recognize you.
Exactly. And on the flip side, what if the system is tricked and someone else gains access to your information?
Oh, gosh.
This leads us to what I call the database dilemma.
Okay.
These systems are only as secure as the databases where all of this biometric information is stored.
That sounds a little dicey when you put it that way.
It can be.
Yeah.
It's like having all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
And that's precisely why, towards the security evaluation of biometric authentication systems, really stresses the importance of robust security measures.
Okay.
They talk about the need for things like encryption, secure communication protocols,
Mm-hmm.
constant sister updates to protect these databases from hackers.
Yeah.
They even propose exploring cutting-edge technologies like blockchain and quantum photography as potential solutions.
Blockchain. I think a lot of our listeners have probably heard that term.
Sure.
That's the technology behind cryptocurrencies, right?
That's right.
What makes that so secure?
The key is decentralization.
Okay.
So imagine a system where your biometric data isn't stored in one central location,
Right.
but instead is spread across a network of computers, making it incredibly difficult for hackers to steal or alter.
So it's like having a million locks on a single door.
Yeah, good analogy.
Okay.
It's a promising avenue, but the technology is still in its early stages.
Yeah, it's interesting. All this talk about data security makes me wonder, are there any laws protecting our biometric information? I mean, it's sensitive, it's personal information.
It is.
You would think that there would be someone, kind of keeping an eye on how all this is being collected and stored and used.
You would think.
So we're there.
That's where things get a little murky,
Okay.
at least in the United States.
Okay.
You might be surprised to learn that there's no comprehensive federal legislation governing biometric data.
What?
It's a bit of a Wild West out there.
Seriously? No federal laws at all?
Some states have started enacting their own laws,
Okay.
but it's a patchwork system at best.
Wow. So the U.S. is really lagging behind in this area.
It is a stark contrast to what's happening in Europe, for example.
You're talking about the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation.
Exactly.
Yeah, they seem to be ahead of the curve when it comes to data privacy.
GDPR sets a much higher bar for
Right.
data protection, including biometric data.
Okay.
And then you have places like China, where facial recognition is already being used for mass surveillance.
Right.
It's a completely different approach,
Yeah.
one that raises a whole host of ethical concerns.
It's a chilling thought to think about being constantly monitored just by walking down the street. And, it makes you realize how vulnerable we are in this digital age.
We are.
I mean, think about all the places where we might be unknowingly providing our biometric data, social media platforms,
Sure.
smartphones. Even some stores are using facial recognition technology these days.
Yeah, they are.
It's a little creepy.
It is.
Are we becoming too comfortable with this trade-off, giving up our privacy just for the sake of convenience?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are we sleepwalking into a future where our every move, right,
Yeah.
our every interaction
Yeah.
is tracked and analyzed?
It's unsettling.
And remember, we talked about how the definition of biometric data is expanding.
Right, you mean things like voice recognition,
Yeah.
gait analysis from our fitness trackers,
Exactly.
even our typing patterns.
That's right.
Wow.
All of these can be used to identify and track individuals.
Okay.
And as these technologies become more sophisticated,
Yeah.
the potential for misuse grows exponentially.
So the question is, are we willing to sacrifice our privacy
Mm-hmm.
for what you called earlier, a frictionless experience?
Right.
Like, what are we really trading away when we just click accept
Right.
on those lengthy terms of service agreements?
And are we even fully aware of what we're agreeing to?
Right.
This is where things start to get really interesting because we're not just talking about technology anymore.
Okay.
We're talking about a fundamental shift
Yeah.
in how we view privacy, identity, and control in the digital age.
Yeah. It's a really important conversation to be having.
It is.
And I'm glad we're having it here today on The Deep Dive.
Me too.
So let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more after this.
And it really is a slippery slope. And one of the papers actually warns about what's called function creep.
Okay.
Essentially, this is where data collected for one purpose ends up being used for something completely different,
Gotcha.
often without our knowledge or consent.
So, I give my fingerprint to unlock my gym locker, and then suddenly I'm being bombarded with ads for protein shakes and workout gear.
Exactly. That's a relatively harmless example.
Yeah.
But imagine that same data being used for more nefarious purposes,
Okay.
like targeted advertising that manipulates our emotions,
Oh, wow.
law enforcement tracking our movements without a warrant, or even feeding into those creepy social scoring systems we see emerging in some countries.
Okay, now that's straight out of a Black Mirror episode.
It's pretty tough stuff.
But you're right. It really boils down to control, who has control over our data,
Mm-hmm.
how is it being used, and what recourse do we have if it's misused?
Those are the questions we need to be asking.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the potential risks.
Right.
But I think it's important to acknowledge that biometrics also offers some genuine benefits,
Okay.
especially in areas like healthcare and banking.
So beyond just the convenience factor.
Exactly. Imagine a world where biometric authentication could streamline access to medical records, ensuring that only authorized personnel can view that sensitive patient information.
Right.
Or consider how biometrics could help prevent fraud and identity theft in financial transactions.
Yeah, those are some pretty compelling arguments.
They are.
So it seems like with any powerful technology, it really comes down to how we choose to use it.
It does.
We need to move beyond the hype and the fear-mongering and have a real conversation
Yes.
about the potential benefits and risks of biometrics.
Exactly. We need to be informed, engaged, and proactive in shaping how this technology is developed and implemented.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about what we can do as individuals to kind of protect ourselves in this brave new world of biometrics.
Sure.
It can feel a little overwhelming, to be honest. Like we're kind of caught in this technological current that we can't control.
It's understandable to feel that way,
Yeah.
but there are steps we can take to be more mindful of our digital footprint.
Okay.
For starters, don't just blindly click, except on those terms of service agreements. Take the time to actually read them and understand what data is being collected and how it might be used.
You know what? I'm going to be honest with you.
Sure.
I am so guilty of that.
I think we all are.
Those things are so long and confusing.
They are.
It's like they're written in a different language.
I get it. They're not exactly user-friendly.
No.
But even being aware of the issue is a step in the right direction.
Okay.
You can also choose to opt out of certain features or services that you're not comfortable with.
Right.
And of course, stay informed.
Yeah.
Keep up with the latest developments in biometric technology and the ongoing debates surrounding its use.
So knowledge is power.
In many ways.
Yes. The more we understand about these technologies, the better equipped we'll be to kind of navigate this complex landscape.
Exactly. And that leads us to another fascinating aspect that some of these papers touch upon.
Okay.
Which is the history of biometrics.
Okay.
This isn't just a modern phenomenon.
Right.
This idea of using unique biological traits to identify individuals actually goes way back.
Publication 2.pdf actually dives into this historical perspective.
It does.
And it really makes you realize that this technology has evolved
Mm-hmm.
alongside our understanding of identity.
Yeah.
And what it means to be human.
That's right.
It's fascinating.
It is, and I think it's crucial to understand that historical context because it helps us see how we got to this point and what the potential consequences of widespread biometric adoption might be.
Okay.
It's not just about technology. It's about power control and the potential for discrimination.
Okay, when you say potential for discrimination, what do you mean?
Well, think about it. What happens if biometric authentication becomes the standard for accessing essential services?
Okay.
Things like banking, healthcare, or even voting.
Sure.
What about people who can't afford these technologies or who choose to opt out for privacy reasons?
So you're saying they could essentially be excluded from participating fully in society?
That's a real concern.
Yeah, that's a pretty disturbing thought.
It is, and it's something we need to address head on.
For sure.
We need to ensure that these technologies are used in a way that benefits everyone,
Right.
not just a select few.
So it's not just about protecting our own data. It's about making sure that this technology doesn't create new forms of inequality.
Exactly.
It seems like we've kind of uncovered this whole ethical dimension to this conversation.
We have.
That goes way beyond just, the convenience of unlocking your phone with your face.
It does, and this brings us to another important question that the sources raise.
Okay.
The economic implications of biometrics.
Okay.
It's not just a social issue, it's an economic one as well.
So we're talking about the costs and benefits of this technology from like a purely financial perspective.
Exactly. Kerfall 2023 final.pds goes into some detail about this, arguing that while biometrics have the potential to streamline operations, reduce fraud, and save businesses money, there are also significant costs
Okay.
associated with implementation and maintenance.
So it's not as simple as just like buying the technology and flipping a switch.
Not at all. You have to consider the costs of data storage security measures, personnel training, ongoing system updates, and of course the potential costs of data breaches and privacy violations, which can be astronomical.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like any major technological shift, there are always those unforeseen costs and challenges.
Right, and it's crucial that we have a clear understanding of that economic landscape before diving headfirst into biometric adoption.
Okay, so let's unpack some of these economic factors.
Oh,
The sources talk about how biometrics can help businesses save money by streamlining operations, reducing fraud, and improving customer service.
right.
Can you give us some concrete examples?
Absolutely. In the financial industry, banks are increasingly using biometric authentication to verify customer identities and prevent fraudulent transactions.
Okay.
This not only protects customers, but also saves banks millions of dollars in losses.
So that's a win-win.
It is. What about other industries?
Yeah, what about retail or healthcare?
Well, in retail, stores are experimenting with facial recognition to personalize shopping experiences and prevent shoplifting.
Oh, wow.
In healthcare, hospitals are using biometrics to streamline patient identification, reducing errors, and improving efficiency.
Okay.
And in the travel industry, airlines are using biometrics to speed up security checks and enhance passenger convenience.
So it's all about improving efficiency and security, but I imagine there's also the potential for biometrics to create new revenue streams and business opportunities.
You're right. We're already seeing companies specializing in biometric data analysis and developing new biometric-based products and services.
Wow.
This is a rapidly growing market with enormous potential.
It's like the gold rush of the digital age.
In some ways, yeah.
But of course, as with any gold rush, there are those ethical considerations that we can't ignore.
Exactly. We need to ensure that the pursuit of profit doesn't overshadow the potential risks to individual privacy and autonomy.
So it's a balancing act.
Mhm.
We need to weigh the potential economic benefits against the potential social costs and make sure we're not creating some kind of dystopian future where our every move is tracked and monetized.
Right.
But beyond just the immediate economic impact, what about the long-term implications for the workforce?
Yeah.
Could this technology disrupt entire industries, create new jobs, lead to job displacement?
Those are all important questions. Some experts believe that biometrics will lead to the creation of entirely new industries and job categories,
Okay.
while others fear that it will lead to widespread job displacement as machines become capable of performing tasks that were previously done by humans.
It's like that classic debate about automation. Will robots take over our jobs, or will they free us up to do more meaningful work?
The honest answer is we don't know for sure.
Right.
The future is always uncertain.
Yeah.
What we do know is that it's crucial to be prepared.
Okay.
We need to invest in education and retraining programs
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that our workforce is equipped to adapt to the changing demands of this digital economy.
So it's not just about the technology itself.
No.
It's about how we manage the social and economic transitions that come with it.
Exactly.
It seems like every path we explore leads us to a deeper level of complexity.
That's the nature of disruptive technologies.
Yeah.
They challenge our assumptions,
Yeah.
force us to confront uncomfortable truths,
Right.
and ultimately compel us to rethink the very fabric of our society.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive so far.
We have.
We've talked about the security risks, the ethical dilemmas, the potential benefits, the impact on our identities in this complex economic landscape.
Right.
But as we kind of look ahead to the future,
Yeah.
one question really looms large.
Okay.
What does the future hold for biometrics? Is this technology destined to become just an inescapable part of our lives?
Hmm.
Or will the concerns about privacy and security ultimately limit its adoption?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And unfortunately, there's no crystal ball that can tell us for sure. The future of biometrics is still being written.
Okay.
It will be shaped by a complex interplay of technological advancements, social norms, government regulations, and individual choices.
So it's not just a technological trajectory,
Yeah.
but a social and political one as well.
That's right.
One of the papers, Towards the Security Evaluation of Biometric Authentication Systems, suggests that we might be approaching a tipping point.
Oh.
As biometric technology becomes more sophisticated,
Mm-hmm.
more reliable, and more affordable, it's going to become increasingly difficult to resist its adoption.
That's a valid point. The allure of convenience and efficiency is powerful.
Oh, it is.
And as we become accustomed to using biometrics in our daily lives,
Yeah.
we may gradually become desensitized to the privacy implications.
It's like the boiling frog analogy.
Yeah.
You slowly adjust to the rising temperature until it's too late.
Right. We're so focused on the immediate benefits that we fail to see the bigger picture,
Right.
the long-term consequences.
Exactly, and that's why it's so crucial to have these conversations, to raise awareness and to engage in informed debate about the kind of future we want to create.
I agree.
We need to be vigilant, informed, and proactive.
Absolutely.
The future of biometrics isn't predetermined. It's up to us to shape it.
Well said.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, There's one more crucial piece of the puzzle we need to explore.
Okay.
And this is where things get really interesting.
All right.
And maybe a little bit scary.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
We need to talk about the role of artificial intelligence, or AI, in the future of biometrics.
Okay.
That's where we're headed in the final part of this deep dive.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. Before the break, we were just about to get into the world of artificial intelligence, or AI, and its impact on biometrics.
Oh, yeah. AI is already changing the game, making these systems faster, more accurate. But of course, with that comes a whole new set of challenges we need to think about.
Well, we know AI is really good at spotting patterns, making predictions. How's that being used in the world of biometrics? I'm curious.
Well, one of the biggest examples is facial recognition. AI algorithms can analyze huge data sets of faces, pick out those tiny little features that we humans, we might miss. Makes the systems more accurate, harder to fool, too.
So it's like AI is giving these systems a major upgrade.
Yeah, but it's important to remember AI, it's just a tool, right? And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Okay, so I see where you're going with this. What are some of the ways AI could be misused when we're talking about biometrics?
One big one is bias. These algorithms, they learn from the data they're trained on. And if that data has biases baked in, well, the algorithm's going to pick that up.
So if an AI is mostly trained on, say, images of people from one ethnic group, it might not be so good at recognizing faces from other groups.
Exactly. And that leads to some really unfair, unjust outcomes. Misidentification, false accusations, all based on someone's race. That's a problem.
That is a huge problem. Anything else we should be worried about?
The potential for more surveillance, more tracking, that's another concern. Imagine AI-powered systems. They could be tracking people's movements, analyzing their behavior, even trying to predict what they're going to do next.
Man, that sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, A world where everything we do is watched and analyzed. Kind of creepy.
It's a real possibility. And we can't just ignore it. Biometrics and AI together, that's an incredibly powerful combo.
Yeah.
It could be used to chip away at our privacy, our freedoms even.
So it sounds like the real issue isn't the technology itself, it's who's got their hands on it, how they're using it. Like, it's a question of power, right?
Absolutely. We need to be sure these technologies, they're developed, they're used in a way that respects human rights, upholds our values.
Okay, but we've been talking about the risks. Are there any good things about using AI with biometrics? Could it actually make these systems safer, more private?
It could. AI can be used to spot and stop people trying to cheat the system, so that makes biometric authentication stronger. And AI can help anonymize data, which protects people's privacy.
So it's like AI is kind of a double-edged sword. It could make things better or worse, depends how it's used.
That's a really good way to put it. It's on us to make sure this power, this tool, we use it the right way.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What can we actually do to make sure AI is used responsibly with all this biometric stuff?
Transparency.
Yeah.
We need to see behind the curtain, how these systems are being trained, what data they're using, what biases they might have. We can't just trust blindly.
Got it. We can't just take it on faith. We need to see the workings.
Right. And we need rules, ethical guidelines, regulations for how AI is used with biometrics. Got to protect people's privacy, stop discrimination, make sure this tech is really working for everyone for good.
Sounds like a pretty big challenge. Balancing innovation with responsibility, that's always tough.
It is a challenge, but we can't shy away from it. The stakes are too high. Biometrics and AI coming together, this is a turning point for us, for humans. Could change the world in ways we can't even imagine yet.
Yeah.
And we got to get this right.
All right. Well, we've covered a ton of ground today. We started out looking at how biometric authentication works. We talked about security, privacy, the lack of rules, all the ethical questions. Then we got into how the definition of biometric data is always expanding. The problem of function creep, how we're tempted to give up our privacy for convenience. We also looked at how biometrics affects the economy, the potential upsides and downsides. And finally, we talked about AI looming over all of this, how it can make biometric systems better or worse depending on who's controlling it.
It's been quite a journey. And like we've seen, the story of biometrics, it's not over. Scientists, policymakers, businesses, even us, everyday folks, we all have a part to play in how this unfolds. There's huge potential here, but there's also real risk.
You've definitely given our listeners a lot to chew on. As we wrap up, one last thought. As this technology becomes more and more part of our lives, are we losing more than just data? Are we giving up a piece of ourselves, of our humanity, to these cold algorithms? It's a question worth asking, worth talking about, and in the end, it's a question that will shape the future. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. Until next time.